Hey guys, Hannah here again. I wanted to come and show you how I added binding to the edge of those frills. I figure I would do a little video on it to show you how I cut the binding and how I attached it to the fabric. So let me adjust my camera. And this is the fabric that I have. It is the fabric that I usually use for jackets, dress pants, but it's just sitting here. And it is called, okay, here it is. Dorchester Stretch Linen, Japantex, yarn, and then there's three. I'm assuming it's three. Or it could be just a design, but that is what it's called. I absolutely love this fabric. It barely wrinkles. I do not have to wash this. No, I do not have to iron this when I wash it. But it has a little give to it, but it's not like a stretch knit. Anyway, so let me move the fabric so you can actually see what I'm doing. So if you don't know how to cut bias on the bias from your fabric, what you do is, let me find a corner that I haven't cut from. You would take your fabric, I need to adjust the camera more so you guys can see the whole table. Okay. So what you would do is you would take your fabric straight ends and you need to fold it like this. That's what you're doing. Now, obviously, the bigger you fold it that way, the longer strips you're gonna get because you're gonna be cutting along this fold here. So if you don't want to have to join bias strips, you want longer cuts. I already cut from this side to do that dress, so I am going to continue cutting on this side. So you would see how long my strips are, and now I'm folding in half. So after you cut along that fold that I told you, you can just fold the fabric like this and line up your edges. I even do this sometimes so that it's just easier when I'm cutting. Like I don't have to get a super long ruler, and I just, this is how I do binding. Okay, I'm gonna put it over on this side, and now I'm gonna get my ruler and my rotary blade. Let me make sure you guys are seeing. So now I'm gonna try and cut it straight. Okay, I need to go on the other side because it's gonna be very awkward if I try to cut from that side. So what I do is I look for the 1¼ inch mark, or 1½, whatever width you want your binding to be. The binding on the dress I had cut 1 1/8, but I could have done, I wish I had a little more. So I think I'm gonna do 1 1/4 for this video. So what I did was, let me see if you guys can see. I've lined up, let me drop the camera now. Gotta zoom in here. And the color is going to change. Okay. So at the 1 1/4 mark on my ruler, I've lined it up with the edge of the fabric. So if your bias tape, your bias strip is 1 1/2, you're going to line up 1 1/2 on the edge of your fabric. So now I just cut. And I would do that again and again for all the strips that I need. Now you see where my fabric is sticking out here? I'm just gonna do that. That's what I would do. And I would get everything straight again. Make it straight. What also helps is lining up the, because your mat would have lines, so you can line up the ruler with the lines on your cutting mat. And this is how I cut my strips of bias. So here's my bias strip, and now I'm going to show you how I attach it to the garment. All right, now we're back at the machine, and I've just taken a scrap of fabric and my bias strip. You want your right sides together, so the right side of your fabric and the right side of your bias tape. Then you just lay it down. You want your edges meeting. That's what I really want to say. So edges meeting, and you can stitch 1/4 inch. Now this machine, my machine has a 1/4 inch foot. So I know that, and I'm gonna stitch it with this blue thread so you can actually see what's happening. So I know once I line up the edge of my foot with the edge of my fabric, it's gonna be 1/4 inch. And then you just stitch. I'm gonna do big stitches just because it's a tutorial. And this will work for curved hems, curved, you know, the frill on my dress. Of course, it's gonna work for straight stuff too, so. Okay, so that should be enough for the tutorial. So I've sewn the seam. Now you need to turn it this way. I usually go to the iron, but I don't have my iron turned on right now. So I would usually go to the iron and press the seams. You know what? I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna turn my iron on, and I'm gonna come right back. All right, so now I'm back. It is iron. Ironing just makes everything easier. The next step is to take your fabric. You want to turn this piece. Let me see if I can put it at the camera better. Okay. So you want to take this piece and fold it down like this. You could iron it if you want. I don't I just turn it as I sew, and it needs to do that. So you're folding it twice. This is your good side. This is your bad side. So what I do is, my machine has a foot called the number 10 edge stitch foot. It's for the Bernina because I use a Bernina. And I adjust my needle 2 ways to the left. So I push the button twice to the left. 1, 2. And I just turn it. Remember, I'm doing it on this side. So I turn once, and then I turn it again, and then I just start sewing. So this little guide here, I put right in the middle. I'm going to show it to you before I start. Let me just get everything set in place, and then I would show it to you. Now I cut it 1 1/4 inches because I wanted a tiny binding. I didn't want like 1 inch binding, 1/2 of an inch. I didn't want that. I wanted like a really tiny binding on the edge of my garment. So if you want a wider binding, you're gonna have to cut it wider and sew a wider seam allowance on the first step. So I'm gonna show you just now. Let's move the camera without making you dizzy. Okay, so this little guide, you can see here, is right in the middle there. My needle is moved 2, I don't know what to call it, steps, pushes of the button. It's this button here, and I press this twice to move it 2 steps from the center, 2 steps right from the center. I hope I've been saying right and not left all the time. 2 steps right from center. That way I know it will catch the top here and also the bottom. So let me go ahead and sew, and you'll see how it looks when it's finished. So as I keep sewing, I keep doing that 1 fold, 2 folds, tucking it in under here, make sure everything is in place. And then I just stitch, making sure that my guide is in place. Check on the bottom. You can see the bottom is being caught. It's not like coming off or running off the road. That's how I do bias. I don't do bias a lot. I try to avoid it, but I really wanted it in this design, so that's why I decided that I would do it. And I wasn't going to the store to buy bias tape. In keeping with using what I have, that's why I decided to cut into the yellow fabric that I had in my stash. So we're almost at the end of my my little tutorial. And you can feel it too, like you can feel where your fabric is, so you know that you're catching the fabric on the bottom. You can also stitch in the ditch, but that's a whole other video. You'll have to keep your needle in the center, not move it 2 steps to the right. Okay, so here is the binding. This is the good side. I sewed with this color thread so you can see. And this is the bad side. And everything is in there. Let's move to the table. Okay. Good side. Bad side. But everything is in there and it's all caught, like nothing is gonna come undone. And that's how I do binding with my own fabric. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Guys, you know me. It's so hard for me to upload videos, but keep sending me ideas, and I'm trying to get better at videos. I am looking at videos on how to do videos because I'm not good when it comes to that, but I'm trying to get there. So hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next video. Bye.